and not HIV negative, sorry, undetectable, which means that you can't transmit it to anybody else. It's just there is no chance of you transmitting the disease, but it's being somebody taking their meds every day, being undetectable, making sure that you're in compliance. You're seeing your doctor every 3 to 6 months, making sure you're in compliance. But are you in compliance? Is your viral load under 20? Like making sure that you're all this stuff.
My understanding, and I hate to be ignorant.
No,
so
please.
No,
This,
so
no, we're not.
Asking you the
No,
questions.
and I want you to ask me questions, and there's no question that is ignorant, because this is what my job is to do, is to educate.
What is the infection rate? So if you have HIV, but you're under control, are you contagious?
No,
so
at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. So now it's called U equals U. That's the new campaign that they're doing, and it means undetectable means equals untransmittable.
Okay.
So if you're undetectable, which
so what about the
CDC,
ethics? What about the ethics though of being undetectable?
Yeah.
Do you still tell your partner?
Yes,
your new partner?
of course.
Okay.
100%. You have to be honest with your partner about what your status is with and you know that your partner is comfortable with what you are. Being the same way, like I'm negative, you're negative, okay, I'm HIV positive but undetectable, I'm negative, let's get you off PrEP. So that you have, even though I'm undetectable, now there's another 99% chance.
Right.
So you have 99% chances in case you don't want to use a condom. So there's other options, but we treat everybody individually. Okay, so you want to use a condom, you use a condom regularly, okay, then great. There shouldn't really be an issue for you, because that's your 99. If you want to be even more, then take a pill, and you're 99 plus 99. So if you're undetectable, you're 99.
Are we going to eradicate AIDS?
Yes.
So are we going to eradicate
We
it?
are.
Now,
We're close.
Is it going to be through just PrEP and safe sex, or is it going to be through a virus?
A cure? You mean like a cure? No, it's going to be through, I think it's going to be a little bit of everything. So there is a cure, they're working on a cure right this second.
Well, they've been working on it since...
Well, I mean, it's going through
Ronald Reagan actually started that.
Well, it's going through the FDA at the moment. Yes. They're doing test studies on live people at the moment.
Oh, it's gotten the human subject research.
Yes, yeah. They're
That's
Houston,
the highest.
Houston is the #1 hub right now. They treated the most patients, or they did the most vaccines for people of that, and so it's really exciting. So the potential to be there, but that is not the cure. The cure is really to get people who are HIV positive undetectable.
Yes.
Because we know that if you're undetectable, you can't transmit it. So that's the only way to control it. You can have a vaccine, but just like syphilis or anything like that.
We should stop talking, because this is the kind of stuff that we should be talking about on the radio.
Yes. And so we're actually 10 minutes, so we can go live right now. Let me go ahead and
Well, we got Dee Dee. She's on her way.
Oh, she's on her way. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. And
so what does POZ mean? POZ.
P means positive. So actually, it actually means like
POZ.
pause.
POZ.
So POZ actually means HIV positive.
Okay.
And so actually, I was thinking of a name, and I was thinking.
Well, what can I do to help you guys besides being here on the radio and interviewing with you? What else can I do? I mean, I am health law. To me, this is a health issue.
Yes.
It is a health issue.
And so really when you have health, the governor currently has not expanded Medicaid for all, or the current Medicaid up. So a lot of people could be covered for health insurance, and that means that people who are currently on Obamacare could have been covered for Medicaid, and that way the larger population is more covered. So when people sue, you could have a bigger advocate for okay, hey, we know that healthcare, while it's expensive, but we still need to get this passed. It's universal. It should be our human right. It should be like getting fed, like getting water. You have to get water. You have to be fed.
Slavery used to be lawful.
I know. Yes.
And it may be that someday that society will mature, And
hope
it may actually end up, I've got to be careful here, it may end up being an actual court case that decides that.
And no, I absolutely
And so,
think I absolutely think it has to be a court case.
So
I mean,
I can't talk about it. By the way,
Yeah.
I love Kamika. I have 2 sets of
oh,
Kamikas.
do you?
Yeah, I've got the wireless mic that you put on the.
Yes. Okay.
You got to watch out the dongles. Oh, you've got the same dongle right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that dongle right there that goes.
From the thing. Yes.
We had a bad one.
Oh, so I haven't had any problems with mine. Mine's actually been really good.
Just be aware that if you ever get a dongle, that white dongle there.
Yeah.
Oh no, was it the white one? No, not the white one. The white one you
But
got from Best Buy. The other one is the one you get.
Yeah.
with the tag
This
that
was the one. I mean, it came with my phone, so yeah. But this one. That's the Kamika.
Kamika. Yes.
Kamika.
Mhm. Well, maybe you're saying it right.
No, you're saying it right. I just really, it was from Amazon. I was like trying to get like
Yeah, that's
cheap,
right.
good tech, but
I bought that. I liked it so much. The single with the clip-on mic. I liked
Really?
it so I liked it so much. I bought the dual.
okay, so I'm gonna have to check them out a little bit more because I've been trying to find.
Well,
So
you get 2 mics.
I don't have. I have.
So you put one here and one on somebody else, and you can do an interview, and use your phone to make it. I can show you some. I did one with Gene Wu,
Yeah.
and I didn't use the dual, but the new ones I've got the dual. It's a little bit heavier duty, but the.
Hi, how are you?
Hey,
I'm doing good.
come sit with me.
Yes.
We were having such fun. Do you know Dee Dee yet?
No, I
Do
don't.
you mind?
Yes, I don't mind at all. How are you? I'm Josh.
I'm doing good.
Nice to meet
My
you.
allergies are bothering me really, really
Oh,
bad.
no.
Jerry.
Oh, I
No,
love you.
She's like the girl with the nails, and now I know what she. Now I know what.
Well, you're the longest guy. I mean, you know.
I'm one who I love my nails.
Like,
I'm gonna let
she's
them
like
grow
the
for
girl with
another
the nails.
10
I'm like,
years.
no, I don't know who. But yeah, we're having a great conversation so far.
Oh, cool. Cool.
I'm glad to be on the radio show with you.
Well, thank you,
I'm
Jerry.
so glad to be on the radio. Dee Dee was my first campaign manager in 2017, and probably the real reason why I got endorsed by the caucus.
All right, so we're gonna go live right now
Oh.
on Facebook at least, and then we're gonna go live right now on the radio too. Like,
Did you
if
get
you-
your
give you-
phone vibrate?
Oh yes. Oh, thank you for reminding everybody. And make sure you guys turn on your mics if they're not on already. There's a little switch on top.
Yes.
Right there. Right there. Those are is the mics.
Let's see. Testing 1, 2. Testing 3, 4. How close should that mic be?
All right, guys. I think we're live. Nope. That's okay. The radio.
I know you live on yours.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Testing
I
1, 2.
feel like I need to be live.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep,
live.
I
I'm
think
live.
we're live.
I'm live.
Oh. Sorry, guys. So we are live on Real Talk 100 Radio. This is Josh. I'm your host for POZ Impact. We have an amazing show tonight. Thank you for joining us, all of our listeners. Who are joining us on our web feed, on our live feed. Sorry, and as well as on Facebook. Yeah, go ahead. However you want to. We have no
Well, I don't want that
options.
thing to be in the way of the viewing.
Oh, thank you so much
That
for-
was sweet.
Yes,
that was really
super-
thoughtful.
yes,
That was really thoughtful.
That's very thoughtful.
You see?
Or I could move over here. How about that?
That's fine with me too.
Yeah.
We love it. We love it. We love it.
Hey, we're all family and friends here, right?
Yes, we are.
Definitely.
Just trying to make sure we are live. Hello. Let's see. Oh, hello. Hello. We're just testing live to see if we're live on Real Talk 100 Radio. If you're just joining us, just bear with us for a minute. Alright, so maybe. Okay, alright. Okay, alright, we are live. Alright, so good. I was just trying to make sure that we are going live right here. before we went on with this, but we're so thankful to have Jerry. And how do you say your last name?
Zimmerer.
Zimmerer.
Zimmerer. Yes.
Zimmerer.
That's
No,
it. You can say it any way you like.
He is running for the Texas Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which is basically like he overrules over all the justices here. So when you have a case and you take your case all the way up to the Supreme Court of Texas, he is the Chief Justice. Just like when you think of Justice Roberts or whoever you think of the Supreme Court, he handles the Texas cases. So this is a really important interview. I hope people tune in to listen to, and I'm sure people will listen to our YouTube afterwards. And I know we had a little bit of talk earlier, so it was really interesting to talk about your experience with HIV. We are POZ Impact, so POZ means HIV positive, and Impact, we just want to make sure we have an impact in the community. I am a Ryan White graduate of 2019, which here of the Houston, Texas. So, and then now I'm actually part of the council with Ryan White. I'm super excited to
Well,
be able to
congratulations.
join one of our first women chairwomen of the Ryan White, but also working together to make sure we eliminate HIV. And by talking about, we have candidates come in here and we talk to them about HIV, what's happening in Houston, in Texas. So Houston is the number 12 in the nation for a new HIV diagnosis. 12 in the nation. And it's the number 1 in Texas for a new HIV diagnosis. And it's mostly affected with our black and brown community.
Right.
And mostly women.
Oh.
Black women. They are not being tested. And so what our goal is just to be a voice of the community, and we're going to start doing pop-up HIV testing in churches and community events, anywhere where women is around. We want to make sure we get them on board to start testing them. So we're really excited to have, and I just want to give a little quick shout out my co-host. Usually she's normally here, Lady Hell. She is actually a little bit sick under the weather, but we're sending her positive vibes and positive thoughts to make sure she just got done with the flu, her husband is done with the flu, her daughter's done with the flu. I'm like, man, this flu virus is no joke. You guys, if you guys are listening to us, we also have a doctor who came on to us and talked to us about how to boost your immune system. And boosting your immune system is part of people living with HIV. They're having a hard time boosting, like your immune system is just not like how normal people are.
Right.
So, but even a normal person who is not living with HIV, you still have maybe diabetes, you may still have all this other stuff. So we're not only talking about HIV, but we're also talking about how to improve your quality of life. So check
Right,
this
a
out.
healthier way of
A
living.
healthier way of living. Jerry, thank you so much for coming on our show. We are so excited to have somebody running for the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court. I know this is something that is not looked at a lot, or you don't get a lot of press. A lot of people talk about it. Like we always talk about our president and U.S. senators, and maybe we'll talk about Congress, and we'll talk about our mayor, and we'll talk about our city council. But we don't talk about our judges, and our judges is who actually decide our fate. So when you take a legal case up to the court office, the judges really decide in your favor who is not in your favor. And so, Jerry, you're honorable because you are currently a judge. So I should really call you your honorable. Go ahead and tell us why you're running to become the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court.
Well, again, my name is Jerry Zimmerer, and I am a justice on the Court of Appeals here in Houston. I have 10 counties in my jurisdiction: Austin, Brazoria, Chambers, Colorado, Fort Bend, Harris, Galveston, Grimes, Waller, and Washington. That's 24% of the population of Texas already in my jurisdiction. So your question is why should I run for Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court? And the answer to that is, quite simply, I'm the best qualified candidate for the position, and that's because of the roles and responsibilities that the Chief Justice has above and beyond that of just any other justice. And we'll get into that maybe a little bit more later. I do have one distinction that most people will find very easy to understand, and I am the most educated judge of any other judge in the state of Texas. I have 3 law degrees, the JD that all lawyers have, plus I have 2 advanced law degrees called LLMs, one in international law and the other one in health law. But you know, that education really doesn't mean anything if you can't apply the law and the knowledge that you have with humanity.
Sorry, I was just saying hi to Lady Hill. Hi, Lady Hill. She's my normal co-host. She normally will sit
Oh,
right
good.
next to me.
Oh, good.
But
Hey.
she's the one. She's a little sick under the weather. But it's these your position is so important because you're not only you're running for the Supreme Court,
Yes.
but you're running for the chief
Yes.
to be in charge of
Yes.
of everybody. So what does the chief
Yeah.
Supreme Court do versus the regular? Like what kind of more authority? So you get to implement cases, you get to decide what cases come through, what cases don't.
So,
What's what's so important about being Chief Justice?
well, that's a great question. So the very first thing that the Chief Justice is a de facto member of all of the major committees that impact our law across the state of Texas. So not only just the judicial system, but also the rules that courts live by, the rules of procedure, the rules of evidence, things of those kind of things are all committees that the Chief Justice sits on, as well as one of the most important, the largest technology division in the entire state of Texas is the Office of Court Administration. Now, it's a huge technology undertaking. It involves all of the communication that manages the dockets of all of the courts, from the criminal side and the civil side, as well as maintains the opinions and things of that are issued. It is a wealth of information to people who have the vision and the ability to actually gather some of that information, but it's also antiquated. And so one of the things that I have a background in technology, including the MCSC from Microsoft and from Cisco Systems as CCNA, CCDA, CCNP, and the CCIE written. Most of your audience would recognize that, yes. I've actually been involved in building IT departments and helped merge Exxon and Mobil together when they merged back when they first merged.
Yeah, a long time ago.
I actually represented 40,000 retail stores globally and got to travel the globe. So I have an extensive background in technology. I don't think any of the other candidates can even. I'm not that they're even qualified to speak in terms of systems, database, networks, or administration.
This is going to be. I didn't even plan on asking you this question, but it just came up to me when you were talking about technology. And maybe you can't answer this, and it's totally okay to tell me that you can't. Sure. And if this goes for everything. If you can't answer something, just let me know. We'll move on to the next subject real quick. But what's your opinion about Bitcoin and the blockchain?
About what?
About Bitcoin.
Oh, Bitcoin
and the blockchain. You know, so
okay. First of all,
can I give you a little indent? So like Texas is very friendly to the Bitcoin things right now. I'm biased a little bit because I operate a Bitcoin ATM machine.
Okay.
And in Texas, you don't have to be licensed as a money service transaction like a normal ATM would have to, because we're doing this from person. So it's coming out of my direct wallet to a consumer. We're just offering it out as a convenience. But with that being said, it's a hard time finding a bank, and it's the same thing like with marijuana, with hemp, with all these pornography. A lot of banks are like, no, we don't touch these things. You know, so how can you, as our Texas Supreme Court, be a little bit more flexible to us and like maybe pass like, oh, okay, so Texas may be we're friendlier to our crypto business, and just feel free to like launch into wherever you may see fit. You know, but like we're having a hard time finding a bank. You know,
so let me share with you. Yeah, let me share with you that because of the because a case exactly like that may actually come
Okay.
up before the Supreme Court, I can't really address the
Underlying
what we would
yeah.
do or
Yeah.
how we might do that. But what I will say is that I have a deeper knowledge of the cryptology that is involved in Bitcoin than the average bearer. So I certainly understand the technology, and so please, I hope I don't cause the Bitcoin to
Okay.
drop by saying this.
Uh,
But all technology. Do you remember not too long ago we used to do banking online with 256K encryption? Nobody would do that. Then went to 512 and then 1024. So why is that? It's because we became more sophisticated, but also as we used to call them script kiddies, people that could just take somebody else's code and implement it. They really didn't know what they were doing, but it's so easy to do those things. And as technology grows, we're going to have more and more, and we've got a deeper bench of people that both mean ill and people
Yeah.
that just don't know any better and do things. I'm concerned about not Bitcoin, but I'm concerned about the technology behind it. And
blockchain.
yes, and so we see that as technology grows, I'm concerned that there may be a hack or something that might get in there. But that would be really somebody else's responsibility, probably not the type of thing that would come before the Supreme
You guys don't think? I mean, so I'm just like but I'm glad you because you do have this technology friendly. You have all this background in technology, so like the blockchain.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
Let's
go ahead.
assume, because I don't actually know the answer
Sure.
to this. Let's assume that the Bitcoin servers that share information among themselves, that there's a conflict between them. The majority rules, right?
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
right. So
well,
what happens when the majority of those blockchain servers
so
are
the-
in a foreign country?
Well, then I mean they separate. I mean, so like that's how you can create like so. Bitcoin currently has like Bitcoin Lite, Bitcoin Cash, and so the Bitcoin module doesn't change because somebody like the majority rules. The majority rules. Okay, so we want to take this into a different direction.
Okay.
Okay, so then you split. So like you split the majority, split it into a different coin, and that coin has that value, or that has that, like Bitcoin Lite and Bitcoin Cash, and there's different kind of splits that happen with different coins all
Okay.
the time. And so Bitcoin hasn't been able to get hacked. Nobody's been able to hack actually Bitcoin. It's been on the market for like 20 years. So the hacking doesn't really concern me. What concerns me is that our politicians and our justices don't keep up with the times.
Oh, well, you don't have to worry about that with me.
Like don't keep up with our times. It's like, okay, this
The
is
technology changes.
technology changes very quickly. Now we're doing computer banking. Now I deposit. I hardly ever go to my bank. I bank with Bank of Texas, and I rarely see them now because I can deposit my checks online. Only should I operate a pet sitting business, and so should I have like a bunch of cash one day, I'll deposit it all. But it's very rare that I should go to that. So like now everything is digital, but moving to the blockchain just means that people, it's accountability. So it's not just one person, it's 10,000 people can see exactly the same thing, But anyways, let's just move on to.
Well, all I'll say is real simply
Okay.
this: that if you came with an issue like that before the court, and I were sitting on the court, I would certainly have a greater depth of knowledge and be able to understand your issues and your concerns better than the average bearer.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for, and that's what we need, especially as a chief justice. So you guys, if you're listening to this, we're currently listening to Jerry. I can't say your last name.
Zimmerer. Yes.
Zimmerer.
Call me Zimmerman. That'll do.
Zimmerman.
Zimmerer.
Zimmerer.
George
No.
Zimmerman. When they were doing the, you remember back a few years ago, they had the Men's Warehouse. I guarantee it.
Yes.
People
Yeah.
would always call me George.
You look like a George.
Oh well, thank you. I guess that's not too bad.
No, it's not bad at all. So we currently have a lot of domestic violence currently, and Houston is the number one for trafficking. How, as the Chief Justice, how can you implement tougher laws on people who are trafficking like right now, if you're caught with like an ounce of cocaine or ounce of this, you get like an automatic just sentence of like 10 years. But if you're caught as a pimp, or if you're caught as somebody who is trafficking children, you get like a slap on the wrist. So maybe like how can we implement new laws, or as chief, maybe somebody has to be sued in order to get up to you. But do you see?
That's right. So the laws actually get made in the legislature,
Yeah.
and then they get enforced by the executive, the police officers and the detectives, and then the cases come before the court, and then the juries make a decision, and then what we do as a part of the court is we look at what's happened, particularly. So may I take a step back here and
Yes,
just talk
please.
about
Yes.
where we are in our court system? So
Yes.
everyone is familiar with the trial, where you go and you have a jury and you have a judge and you have the lawyers. It's on TV all the time.
Yes.
So everyone's familiar with that. The question is what then happens if something doesn't get done properly, or it's not done properly? Well, that's what the Court of Appeals do, where I sit now. So my job now is to review the records from the trials below and to see that everything is done properly. And then, whether it's properly or not, but to write opinions. So I have almost 300 opinions that I've been on in the court. And so then my job is to implement the law, to make sure that the law that is written by the legislature and the rulings of the judge fall within a degree of reasonableness, the discretion that the court has. And then to apply that law and the interpretations that have come to me from the Texas Supreme Court, and apply that as if I were the Texas Supreme Court, but using their words and using their interpretation as I apply that law. I may not even agree with that law, but that's my charge, is to apply the law that's given to me to the trial courts below. And that's what the intermediate courts do. So when you appeal from the trial below, you're saying that something went wrong in the trial below. And that's where the Court of Appeals comes in. But there's a difference between the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court isn't so concerned with whether everything was done properly in the trial court below. They trust, for the most part, they trust that the appellate courts have done that review properly. But what they do look at, which is unique, is the Supreme Court looks at the law itself. Is the law correct? Is it the law? Why is it the law? Should it be the law? So the Supreme Court actually is doing a much broader interpretation of the law than the appellate court does. We follow the rules, and we stay within the lanes that are given to us. And so that's why, perhaps if you were interested in some kind of measuring stick for how well an appellate court justice was doing, you might say, well, Justice, you've got this almost 300 opinions. How many have actually been appealed? And that would give you a good indication of how well the appellate court judge justice is doing.
Okay. So I'm not too familiar. So, but I do understand, the whole kind of court situation and how to appeal and to make sure that our judge, like, should something go wrong with the case, that's when you're each party, whether it's ruled in favor or not, can appeal. So, like, of course, the person that raised it for the defendant or the prosecutor who is on the opposite side appeals and goes up to you guys. But like, how does it? Right now, we see a lot of difference with the LGBT community.
Yes.
And our community currently, there's a despair. So like, oh, you're trans, oh, you're gay, you don't get certain rights. How, as the Texas Supreme Court, this case may come up to you potentially in the coming years, where if we don't get like Bernie Sanders in president, that makes everybody have not equality, but equity. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for equity. I don't need equality any longer. I need equity. And when we have equity, that means everybody has the same level no matter what. So I may need 3 steps get to see above the fence. And you may only require one step, but the steps shouldn't matter, and versus with everybody should have exactly the same opportunity to get to see above the fence. So that's why I think that our Supreme Court can have a next level of helping us out in the LGBT community, where we have a governor, where we have it's mostly conservative, so like you're running as a Democrat, as a
I am. That's correct. Yes.
So in a conservative town where we have this anti-LGBT, how do you plan on being?
That's a great question. Why don't you ask Dee Dee how she thinks I'm going to handle that?
All right, Dee Dee, you're up. So he's putting all the weight on his entire campaign on you.
So let me introduce Dee Dee Waters.
Please.
Dee Dee Waters is a very dear friend of mine, and Dee Dee is a leader in the LGBT community, and we met back in 2017, and you became my campaign manager. And so, for those that,
in
and I won,
2017.
thank you, and with the support of the gay community, thank you. But you're smiling. Okay, let's hear it. What do you think about all this?
So I think that for me, I am a person who living as someone who is a black trans woman and unapologetic about it. Some of the things I always have to really look at it a little bit differently. So when it comes down to Jerry and what it is that I believe that he would do, I think that Jerry would definitely look at what the law is and what is it that we can do to make sure that law is implemented in a certain way, right? So when it really boils down to is that when we look at who it is that we have in office, when we look at what we're doing from a local level instead of on a national level, it makes things look a little bit different, right? So when we bring up things like equality, when we bring up things like equity, for me as a black trans woman, like the question is, what does that even look like for me, period?
Yeah.
So, I haven't even gotten to equality. So how can we talk about equity? Like, how do we talk about what it is for moving forward for me? So it's like, it's one thing from a community standpoint on like the LGBT community or the LGBTQI plus community, but then when it comes from me as a black trans woman, I have to speak from a different perspective. So it's like on one end, one of the main things is this for me. When I met Jerry, Jerry came to one of my events, and upon meeting him, we had a simple conversation.
What kind of event do you have?
So this event, I believe, I've had too many events, to be honest with you. This was I believe this was like it may have been like a transgender research fair, not research fair, a resource fair.
Okay.
I think.
So
maybe
that's awesome that you actually showed up to a transgender research.
Right, he showed up. He showed up.
I was trying to get you to help me find one of my clients.
Right. So, and the odd thing is that not only that, but afterwards, Jerry then came to me and asked me what it would look like for us to work together to, for me to be his campaign manager. So for me, one of the most important things is to look at people's actions, right? So whenever we're talking about politics and politicians and political things, we have to look at it for people's actions. So someone can say so many things, like you can say so many things. But for me, I look at it as a black trans woman who had to survive, who had to come up, and who got somewhere. And I actually had an individual who looked at me and said, you know what, I believe that you can help me get where it is that I need to get within this campaign and within winning. And for someone to believe in me, a black trans woman who was told that I would never amount to anything, for him to believe in me enough and trust me to be able to take his campaign where it needed to be at, it meant a lot. It meant a whole lot, because at the end of the day, that's not something that happens often, and I have to go based upon action instead of words so often, right?
Yeah.
Because just like we talk about equality, there should be equality. I should have equal rights as anyone, whether or not it's a gay man, a white man, a black, a cis woman, like, whoever it may be, I should still have rights. And so when we even talk about equality, we still have to really figure out
what equality is for you.
And what that looks like for me.
Who are you supporting as president, which really doesn't matter. But if you don't you can tell me. You can say you don't want to say it.
No. I have no problem. They already know how this goes.
Okay.
So Monica Roberts. So first and foremost, shout out to Monica Roberts. Yeah. Monica Roberts serves as my political advisor. So generally, it's whoever Monica tells me to go with. But whenever I give my
I need to have her on my show. I've been trying to get her on my show. I need to reach out to her to have her She's one of the people who I really do want on my show because she has a lot to say, and
Yes, and
I
she
need her
needs
to
the
read
time
her.
to be able to say it, baby.
Yes.
Monica,
Yeah.
Monica is absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on, Monica, come on down.
Yeah, come on to POZ Impact if you're listening to this. If you guys know Monica, please tag her and tell her that she's welcome to come on POZ Impact. But go ahead, tell us who you're supporting.
So
I'm just curious.
So for president, at the present time, I'm going with Warren. So
Okay.
I'm totally going with Warren.
Is it because she's a female?
So to be honest with you, it's because of, again, action. So whenever
Okay.
people went to Warren and told Warren what the issues was of the voters, what your constituents have an issue with, and like what's important to us, she started to make her whole entire, like her staff is diverse. Her staff looks like the issues that we're having, if that makes any sense. And so it becomes more relatable for me looking at her. If I sit there and said that there were certain issues or certain things that I needed to talk about, or I had questions about, someone was going to reach out. It's funny because I have friends who have made statements and she's reached out. So it's like she's the best candidate.
Yeah.
I also
I,
like Mary
what I
Kay.
what I like about her is that she also has a trans her campaign her Houston campaign person, or like whoever's running her campaign here in Houston, organizing it, she's a transgender as well too.
Oh, that's
And she
interesting.
came out to the political caucus. She had two people come out to the caucus, one in December and one in January. So she's actively seeking, the caucus endorsement,
Mhm.
which I thought was pretty amazing. To tell you the truth, I was like, okay, I can take a deal. I'm a Bernie fan, as you can know.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm not gonna hold your important support against you. And we're all here, we're all family, and we want to make sure and it's not about who you support. It's just about maintaining I want to know what you hold value to, and when you're endorsing him, I want to make sure that you are in the correct mind frame.
Mhm.
To tell you the truth, making sure that you're matching your words back, your statements towards him, and I can see that. I can see that when you speak of him, you speak genuine, and that to me is a level up. To me, when I'm interviewing somebody, when I'm questioning, oh, how is he relatable to me,
Mhm.
and is he going to be relatable to? Because when a lot of people think of the LGBT community, they forget the T behind it.
Mhm.
It's LG. It's LG. That's it, or GL. However you want to say it, but that's it. It's gay or lesbian, and that's it. That's the only people who exist in the LGBT community when we say it. And so when you're telling me as a black trans you support him, I'm okay. I'm like, I support you too.
Oh,
You
thank
know?
you.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta look at it. It's an action thing.
I do like that, and I'm 100% against actions. I'm 100% for actions, and I want to see what somebody does in your history. Being a lifetime member of the caucus.
Yes.
Being not just because you hired her, but because you've been a lifetime member, because you've been trying to support us. So I like that. I really do, and that's just my personal.
Well, thank you.
Opinion
Well, I
behind it.
think this is really, when and I've said this before, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but LGBTQIA+ are just labels. To me, behind each of those labels is actually a human being.
Yes.
And I don't care which label you have. I think you're entitled to fairness and justice. You're entitled to a hearing, and not just a hearing where we hear what you have to say, but consideration. And so that's my view on the law, and that's how I run my court. That's how I want to see the Texas Supreme Court run.
Let me ask you a couple questions that I found to be interesting. What do you believe to be the root cause for the high numbers of juvenile offenders? What changes can the court system make to reduce these numbers?
Well, when you say juvenile offenders, you're talking about youth offenders and
Well, I'm talking about the prison, the school to pipeline prison
school.
system.
Yes.
As
Well, I will share with you my
these
personal-
African American kids are being arrested way higher than white people are for the same offense, and then once they're arrested, they have a criminal record, and now you've been in jail. Now you have the chance of you going back to jail, or
It's a shame.
It's a shame.
It's a
So how do
public
we
shame.
end that? How do we end that?
Well, I don't know that I have the answer for that, but what I will share with you, and I've shared this with a lot of people, the things that I got away with, people don't get away with anymore. I don't think I'd want to grow up in today's society. It used to be that if you got into trouble, you you'd get a second chance. The police officer would take you to your mom or dad and tell them what happened, and you'd get in trouble, or there's no there. Society has built this zero tolerance policy, and I just think it's. I can't speak about every situation. I'm just speaking generally. I would like to see us be more humane with each other, more concerned about each other. I think these children need guidance and not punishment sometimes. So I don't know that as a judge, we do see these cases. I see these cases coming up from the courts below, and I will share with you that we're deeply concerned. The Democratic judges that are on the courts of appeals, we're deeply concerned about some of the things that we're seeing. So it's an issue that we're looking at.
So like under what circumstances can the court seal files or close court proceedings? I know there's a lot of like this just to me like sounds like with police brutality, or when an officer involved case when they want to preserve the officer identity, or making sure like nobody knows what actually happened, and the Epstein case just comes to mind, even though it's in a whole different state and a whole different but like they just came out where they're the jail recorded over like
there's laws have changed. Yeah.
How do we make sure we protect our laws and the Texas
So in Texas, it used to be that a judge could seal a record just because they wanted to, but now there's and you're going to catch me because I haven't read it recently, but there's now a requirement that the judge there are standards that are applied, and it's been a while since I've looked at this, so a judge can't just seal a file because they want to anymore. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. No, that's totally great.
So Texas actually believes in openness of the court system, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But for example, somebody may be there may be an allegation of, that might hurt somebody's name or reputation, and a judge used to have the ability just to say, well, I'm going to seal that record. That's no longer the case. That's actually changed.
That's great, especially for Texas. I think transparency is the best key.
Yes.
Harris County just went through a bail reform, as well as Austin, Travis County.
Yes.
I think Dallas is trying to go through one as well too, if they haven't already. But what factors are consideration in granting or setting bail amounts for defendants? What is your belief in the consideration?
So I fully support Kim Ogg's efforts to try to look at bail reform. I remember as a young lawyer that I was appointed on cases in the county courts and county criminal courts, and I will share with you, anyone who's ever done the job realizes that you got to learn how to do it first. And there were things that I did, and the law changed. So I made recommendations to some of my clients that seemed right at the time, but so somebody that might have been charged with indecent exposure or something. Again, these were appointed cases, and so it wasn't like a retained client. The idea is that you help them get through the system, and you're helping smooth the process so they can get out of jail and go about their business. But I sometimes wonder, and I remember a young man, I think he was 16, 17, or 18, and his mother came to me while we were in court, and he was mentally challenged, and he had exposed himself to a female in a restaurant, like a McDonald's or something. And so the usual process was just to plead them out. It's a first offense, it's no big deal. But since then, they've gone back and looked at those cases, and they've said, oh, if you have sexual offenses, you may or may not lose your government benefits. And so I often wonder what happened with that person, and if what I did for that person way back then actually what seemed right at the time and appropriate, if I shouldn't have fought harder for them. And so I don't know, what was the question? I got sidetracked.
No, it's okay.
Oh, bail reform.
Yes.
I support Kim Ogg. I will say that people stayed in jail.
Well, I mean,
The
so
people-
Kim Ogg sued
Yeah.
the bail reform. It's saying that it was too lenient.
Oh,
And so she went against it. So she was for it originally, and then she sued. Once the Harris County passed it, they're like, oh no, this is too lenient. I don't want this. And blah blah blah. Whatever her reason was, even though she was supportive, she had they gave her an opportunity.
okay. So you're getting into the specifics of bail reform. That I probably can't talk about. That might actually come before me at some point.
True.
So,
yes.
but I'm thinking just in terms of general broad. I
should
feel like
somebody
people,
should
people
everybody
shouldn't
have
be-
non criminal cases or criminal, right? Or like there's like different types of when you get arrested, there's like different degrees of levelness, So like if it's something like tickets, you shouldn't have to sit in jail for 5 to 6 days to see the judge. You should just be able to get a PR bond. Is that
Yeah, but
something?
see, that's different. Like that's different. So again, for me, my growing up, whenever I had a bunch of tickets, it was easier to go and sit them out as warrants, and then they become time served compared to sitting in there, getting bailed out or getting out, and then still having to pay the ticket. If that makes any sense, it may not sound right. It's not the political answer, but it's a real answer.
No, but
And
that would
so-
be the choice of the defendant.
Right.
So like, okay, I choose, like, you come before the judge and you get arrested, and because you have a traffic ticket behind you get arrested, and you say, and for whatever the traffic was, a broken tail light, running the red lights, running a stop sign, you have a warrant, and you go there. You shouldn't have to sit in the court in jail for 3 or 4 days until you see the judge, and then you're like, okay, yes, I do want to. Then you get time served. So you should be able to just get it. You have a PR bond where you're released because you're losing your job. What if you have to go to job the next day? What if job that same day? What if you've been taking? So there's so many actions behind it. So I just feel like
Right, but time served is time served.
Yeah,
Means
but-
that you served the
yeah,
time.
but what if I should can I do weekends?
Right,
You
no,
know,
like
you know what I'm saying?
they
Like,
work
can I-
out things
can I
like
work
that.
out-
They do. They
Can
do
I
work
work
it
out the details before I go to jail? Before you just arresting me and I have to take the time served the 4 days that I'm there? They're like, okay, it's time served. But what happens if that was Monday, and where I could have been Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm off, whatever days, so it wouldn't interfere with my work. So I'm just trying to make sure I advocate for the people who do have a misdemeanor, I guess that's the right word to
So
say.
let me interrupt
Yeah.
here real quick.
Go.
So with regard to the specifics of bail reform, I can't comment
Okay.
on that at this point. Generally speaking, I certainly supported the idea that people shouldn't be sitting in jail for no other reason other than they've been charged with some kind of a low-level crime.
Yeah.
I don't know the specifics of how that is being implemented. I just applaud the efforts to try to be reasonable and fair. I do know back in the 80s and the 90s, people would sit in jail because they didn't have the money to get out on low-level crimes, and they would plead out, and it was a common thing. People would plead out,
Yes,
and
for
they
sure.
would get these jail records, and they get these criminal records, and they would get them over and over again, primarily what appeared to be because they couldn't afford to stay in jail. They had families. And that was an injustice. But to your point, the balance between law and justice, you have to apply the law fairly to everyone. Rich, poor, black, white, men, women, LGBTQ. You've got to, brown, Asian. I don't want to leave anybody out, but you've got the point.
Sorry, I'm dying here.
Bless you.
Yeah.
You have to apply the law equally to everyone, but sometimes it's simply a recognition a recognition of the issues and problems that people face, that you can fashion remedies through the legal system simply by giving some acknowledgement to some of the injustices that people say have to experience on a day-by-day basis.
Okay. No, I'll take that. I'm just passionate about like certain issues, and bill reform is one of them. But so another question is like, what do you believe are the causes of the higher rates of minority incarceration?
Higher rates of what?
Of minority incarceration.
I think there's an implicit bias, and we're working very hard to make sure that judges learn about implicit bias. Implicit bias is the bias that we all have. We may not even recognize we have it. It's actually, implicit bias is part of the way our brain functions. And so there was a professor, a black professor that came and taught us about implicit bias. And he said, you're going through a dark spot and you see, something that looks like a snake, and you react to it. And then you turn on the light, oh, well, it's just a broken chair.
Yeah.
So, but we group things in our mind, it makes it easier for us to understand. So there is a psychological basis for actually we group things in categories in our mind, and when we do that, we create implicit bias. And so because of this implicit bias, we have to work hard to recognize our biases, because we all have them, and then we have to work to overcome them, and to try to counteract those implicit bias, because we recognize that that's there. I don't know how the court system is going to always work that well to do that. We do it, number one, through voir dire, where we allow the attorneys to question the jurors as to their biases. We do that at the beginning of the trial, criminal or civil case. And the whole purpose is to try to weed out those people with biases, because everyone should be entitled to a jury of their peers without having bias come into play. But as I think that early on, particularly in the 80s and the 90s, I think radio and television was particularly bad at depicting race as good and evil. The criminals were always black, and the good guys were always white. They wear the white hat, and I think that really did a disservice, because it created in a whole generation of Americans an implicit bias, and I think we still suffer to some of that today.
Do you believe there's such a thing as victimless crime? If so, what offenses would you place in this category? You can tell me you can't answer it. It's okay. But I thought it was a great question.
I don't believe there is victimless crime. If it was truly victimless, society would not be a victim. The individuals would not be a victim. If there really was no harm and no victim, then I don't know that it would be criminal. But maybe I'm missing something.
What do you think about the growing prison population, and what response should society have on the prison growing?
I don't know that I have as a justice, I don't know that I actually have a direct opinion on that. I look at every case individually. If somebody is guilty, if they've been found guilty, I look to see if the evidence supports the conviction. And in at least one case, I found that the evidence wasn't there. The jury was just mistaken. And so in that one case, I actually worked to speak with my fellow justices, because I work in panels. I don't make a decision on my own, and we work to try to remedy that situation. And so anyway.
No, that's great. Do you feel the war on drugs has been effective or ineffective?
Well, do you know anybody that can't buy drugs today?
No.
I mean, if there's a war on it, they're not doing a very good job. Now, I wouldn't know where to go, but my understanding is that on the streets of the city that if you want something and you know where to go, you can get it. So, how does that mean a war on drugs?
Well, I think it really means like right now, the war on drugs means there's certain penalties per drug. Like if you found with powder cocaine, you get this. If you found with crack cocaine, like or the if it's powder, you get one sentence. If it's like the
Now,
liquid,
you're talking about sentencing in drug cases.
well,
That's different.
but isn't that the same thing as war on drugs? Is because the whole point of war on drugs
Oh,
was like
okay.
the sentencing part of it. Like we
I
were gonna
was thinking
mandate
differently.
we're gonna mandate people sentence based on this, so they can it would be like a deterrence. But what we found was it was a deterrence, and it's still not a deterrence. And so how do we how as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, should maybe a case come before you, maybe you can't tell me
I wouldn't be
how you would rule
Yeah.
for it or against it, but has it been effective? Like, do you think it has been effective in your opinion? Do you think that we should maybe have a different look on
So
the
let's just
maximum or like the minimum sentencing amount? You know what I'm saying? I guess
so really those kind of issues get decided in the legislature.
Okay.
So that what the punishment range is all set by the statutes, and that's set by the legislature. I don't get a choice on.
So you
on
don't
those
you
things.
cannot change that law.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have the authority to
Okay.
change that law. Certainly not right now.
Do you believe there's an underrepresentation of women or people of color in the court system? If so, how would you work to correct the problem? I think this is great because you do have a person of color who is transgender on your campaign currently. And so how would you
And then Kate is a young. Kate,
how would you put that into your actual justice system? Because you do have to hire.
I think that
Right.
as an old white man, I think that it is incumbent on me to work to improve the lives of all citizens, and that includes people of all races and orientation. I will share with you what I did recently. I had the only black young intern, when we were doing the internship program. So I believe in mentorship, and a young man came to my chambers and gave me his resume and showed the kind of initiative that I believe in, that I needed so that I could get a chance in the court system. And I took his resume downstairs and I said, I don't know how many interns we've got, but add this one to my chambers. And that's what we did. So, that was a student from TSU, Thurgood Marshall School of Law. And I don't know if I should give a shout out or not, but anyway, really brilliant young man. He's got a great career ahead of him, and I'm glad to have been a part of that.
Do you believe that all citizens should have adequate access to legal help and the legal system?
I am a fellow on both the Houston Bar Foundation and the State Bar Foundation, and in both situations, that means that I've contributed a significant amount of money and have pledged and continue to pledge to give money to help support the working poor, those people who are not entitled to government benefits, but yet need legal help. And I think that's particularly true in people who have health issues. One of the saddest stories I ever heard was a child with deep physical disabilities who turned 18, and the mother went to the pharmacy to get the prescription,
Yeah.
and the pharmacist wouldn't give it to her because she didn't have a medical power of attorney. She didn't have a guardianship, and so she had to get a Metro bus to take her child in a wheelchair to the CVS or wherever it was. I don't want to impugn
Yeah.
CVS, but to the drugstore. And with the same prescription, handed it, and the pharmacist literally laid the prescription on the young man's chest. Couldn't even pick his hands up to take possession of it on his own. So the pharmacist put it on his chest. And then she had to wait. They both had to wait because the Metro bus that doesn't wait. They'll take you where you need to go.
And they'll leave you.
And they will leave you. And so even though they were just there to pick up a prescription, they had to wait again until that bus would come back. And to me, that because I have a daughter with cerebral palsy who's confined to a wheelchair.
Yeah.
I know what that experience is like. Not maybe so deeply personal as that is, but I have been to therapy sessions and been in medical offices where other children who's so much more severely disabled than my daughter is. That my heart goes out just hearing that story. So the idea is these guardianships, medical guardianships, we should be doing those for free. So yes, I'm committed to those who need legal help but can't quite afford it.
No, I think that's awesome. So like as you know, somebody with HIV, I do get like this. I go to Thomas Street as my clinic, and so like every Wednesday or every Tuesday of every month, like the first or third Tuesday of every month or the third Wednesday, I have this legal person that comes up there and I can ask legal questions. So I have problems with my landlord, and fortunately I found out that as a tenant you have no rights in Texas. All the rights are for the landlord. You have like the landlord can do whatever they want to do to you as a tenant, and you have no other option. If
Well,
the
that's not completely true, but yeah, there is some discrimination.
There
There's
a huge,
you're right.
there's a huge.
You're right. There's a lot of.
I mean, like, I can't like, if my landlord tries to evict me, and that means I have to go to court. I have to, even if I win my case, it will still be on my record that I was that somebody tried to evict me. Win or lose. If I win, it's still there. If I don't, like, if I don't pay my rent because of
Oh yeah.
because I had like he made me pay like almost $5,000 worth of damages, and he had to replace the floor, the entire. I had a hole in my floor, and he was like, "Oh, that's caused by you," but because he said it was, there's nothing I can do about it. Nothing.
Oh,
And
I think there are a lot of things you could have
Well,
done about it, but I'll be glad to talk to you off the air.
So I did contact, so I'm glad that there's options available for people like me who are able to contact a legal representative and say, hey, what are my options here? What do
Yes.
I have? I'm like, okay, this is what you need to do.
Yes.
These are the steps that you have to take care of. You still have to pay your rent. You still have to do these things, but this is what you can do afterwards.
You know,
And
we didn't talk much about HIV, and I do need
Yes.
to run here fairly shortly.
yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, it's about 10 minutes. Yeah, we do have left. Yeah. So this whole show is about HIV.
yes,
And I was telling you earlier, Houston. So how can we make sure that everybody has HIV treatment, or the people who
So,
do
yes.
have HIV care, or people who are living with HIV are not discriminated against versus having adoptions, or having a marriage, or any kind of like criminal cases regarding them because of their HIV status.
Right.
And maybe you can answer that, because maybe something will like that
so
will
let
come about.
me start by saying that in addition to my law degree, my JD that all lawyers have, I have 2 advanced law degrees, both from the University of Houston Law School, one of which is in health law. And I'm on the board of advisors to the Health Law and Policy Institute, a division of the University of Houston Law School. And I did my internship at MD Anderson Cancer Center under Dr. Colleen Gallagher and Dr. Michael Ure, some of the most brilliant people that I know. And they've had a lot to do with shaping my views on ethical issues around medical care. And so let me first say that HIV is a medical issue. It is not a lifestyle issue as relates to the care that someone gets. That it's certainly transmitted through sexual activity, but it can be transmitted through other means. And so for me, from my perspective, HIV is a medical issue before anything else. And so that's the orientation that I take to it right away. Um, and I don't think anyone should be discriminated against because of their medical condition.
No, I think that is a perfect way to end this. Thank you so much. So, Jerry, I can't say your last name, so I'm not going to try it.
Zimmerer.
Zimmerer.
Jerry for Justice?
Jerry for Justice.
Yes.
How can someone contact you? I know you don't have a huge. I mean, everybody in the state of Texas gets to vote for you.
That's correct.
So, right? We do have people in Austin and Dallas and in Houston listen to us. That's where usually our base mainly. So how can someone maybe get in your campaign, maybe try to do, I don't know if you're taking donations.
Absolutely.
How can someone help you out? Our Chief Justice is a very important case,
Yes.
an important run or important candidate, in our race to vote for, and we're really trying to make sure we get it out of the Republicans' hands. So
We need balance on the court.
we need balance on the court. And so what happens? Well, I have like 3 minutes left. But what happens if you are voted into
Yes.
as Chief Justice and then you have a majority Republican?
Well, that's a great question because what happens is that we write dissents and we write concurrences. These are different opinions that we write, and I've got a video coming out on Facebook with Carell G. Robinson, who is the newly elected president of the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats, a very thoughtful man, and we talk about how even Thurgood Marshall said that from the dissents, from the opinions that are written, the dissents, come the actual law later on. So it's actually, you start the thoughts, you start the process where you justify why the law should be changed. And then sometimes, over time, it becomes recognized. The best example of that is gay marriage. The very first opinion that came out about gay marriage came out of California.
Yeah.
And it was in the 1984 when
Wow.
that came out.
Wow.
And it was a very well-reasoned opinion that said, why does the government distinguish between one marriage versus the other? And it goes through all of the reasons why heterosexual marriage is, preferred, or, the values of heterosexual for procreation. But then what about somebody that can't procreate? Can they marry? Well, of course they can, because marriage is more than just about procreation. So anyway, it was a very long reasoned opinion, and a lot of people laughed at it. But now look at it today. It is the law of the land.
Thank you so much. Well, before we leave, real quick, that was my last answer. That was my last question for you. Can you give us all your social media?
Yes, so Jerry for Justice,
Yes.
JerryFor Justice, JUSTICE.com, JerryForJustice.com, or on Facebook. It is Jerry for Justice, but you can type Jerry Zimmerer for Chief Justice, but you can find me there. There'll be some videos there, a lot of just personal messages where I've tried to share a little bit more about myself, not just the 2-minute interview that most people get, but you'll get a chance. And Dee Dee here, if you let me, I'll take this video and we'll probably put Dee Dee and me up there. So
Yes.
why don't I let Dee Dee say the last word?
Yeah, I'll give you the last words on him. We have 4 minutes left.
Oh,
Go
wow.
ahead. You get 4 minutes, a full 4 minutes left.
Oh, wow.
You've been so quiet, other than just talking a little
Yes,
bit.
no.
Dee Dee is not one to be quiet.
She's been super quiet. She's been super quiet on my show today.
Well, no, the thing is that
Why should we vote for Jerry?
So Jerry is one who, as a Chief Justice, he's going to do exactly what it is that the law is. And so one of the realities is that when we talk about, before we even talk about the voting for Jerry, it's about understanding the purpose of the voting part and like how important that is. Jerry's job is going to be to make sure that when he's looking at these cases, that they are going based upon the law, and then also doing that from I don't even know what word I want to use, but that whenever it's done, that it's based upon what the law says. So what that means to me is that the more of us that get out and vote. The more of us that get out and start to change legislature, when we're changing these laws, these laws that affect people like me, you know, my black body. It's so important because it then gives me someone that I know that I can go to if my case was handled a certain type of a way, if the law reads this way, but it can also be seen this way, if that makes any sense. Knowing that there's a court of appeals that this can go to, knowing that there's someone who would actually look at my case, and I would be important enough for them to be able to pay attention to it. And so the thing is that whenever we talk about biases, whenever we talk about the prejudice that people have, when we talk about these things, it's about making sure that we have someone that's not going to see black, white, brown, yellow, blue, that they're going to see black and white, and the black and white that they're seeing is the black and white that's on that paper, that white sheet of paper with that black ink writing that's on there, and what that really looks like. So again, it's important that we get out and that we do our part in voting. It's important that we do our part in looking at what legislature looks like. What do these laws look like? What are they saying as it pertains to us individually, right? And then as a whole, and then from there, being able to know that we have a person that's sitting in that seat that's going to actually look at that and do it with open eyes and be willing to actually enforce and stand up as a justice of the courts. You know, so it's like when you go to appeals, that's a very important thing, especially whenever it goes to his desk and he gives his recommendation, and then what happens next. Because just as you were saying, you know, there was a case where certain information didn't add up, and he had to go back and say, you know, hey, this doesn't look like the jury really did what the jury was supposed to do, and then to pose that question, that's a really good thing, because guess what? It hasn't been me and or you who's sitting there for 10 or 15 years, you know what I'm saying? And just to know that someone would actually even look at something like that means a lot. So having someone like Jerry in that seat is going to be extremely important, and it's not just going to be important for people like me, it's going to be important for people, period, because the direction that we're going in. You brought up something earlier when you talked about like diversity and women being in certain places. When Jerry won, he also won with what I believe 17 other judges, a large number of black women. You know what I'm saying? And so when you look at that, there's a lot that's going on. And to me, one of the things that I like the most about Jerry, one of the things that I love the most about Jerry, is that for me, in the very beginning when I met Jerry, I did not think that this man was going to say, hey, you know, I believe that you're brilliant, and I think that you should handle my campaign, man. You know, and so it's like, and he trusted whatever I said, you know, and it meant so much, because it showed that he was genuine in what it was that he was doing. He wasn't, in my eyes, it wasn't just for a vote from like, or an endorsement. It was the fact that he knew that he wanted to win, and he had the people on his team that was going to help him to win. And I'm honored to be able to say that I did serve as his campaign manager. I'm honored to say that, you know, he won. I'm honored to say that, you know, he's a person that I've seen his growth since the day that I met him, if that makes any sense, like literally.
No, I think growth is super important when we're talking about this, because I don't know everything, you don't know everything, nobody knows everything, but if we can't grow, then we can't learn. So, and if we're not willing to learn, then we can't better ourselves. So
I agree with all of that.
That is so I mean, well, you're just speaking some truth right there, and I'm loving it.
But this is the thing. So like for me, the most important part, like the most exciting part, again, no offense, Jerry, but no, like real talk, like Jerry is a older white guy.
Yeah.
Like no offense, but at the end of the day, I'm a black trans woman.
Yeah.
Okay, with some long fingernails. Yeah. Okay, so it's more like I look at all of the things that people told me as I was going through certain things.
Typing.
Oh, I type all the time. That's my thing. I used to type at 47 words a minute. So I'm extreme. Like I do it. But with Jerry believing in me and doing that, it said so much to me that, you know, he was really authentic in what it was that he was looking to do, and that for someone who looks like Jerry, who's lived like Jerry, to trust me that way, it really, really meant a lot.
All right, guys. So it's 8:01. So I'm gonna leave it at that right there, because I want them to sign our little book, and I want to take a picture. So for everybody who's listening, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will be right back. So stay tuned. We're gonna take a little commercial break real quick, and we'll be right back. All right, guys.
Thank you.